All right, and welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. I'm your host, Laraib, and today we're having a special episode of just me. Lewis, unfortunately, is not able to make it today, but we still wanted to get the picks or predictions in for you guys for this Thanksgiving slate, along with the first ever Black Friday game. And so, it's just going to be me for today, but I'm going to have, a little bit of breakdown for each of these games. Now, I know a lot of them might not seem too interesting with a lot of these lines. The lowest line only at -7.5. But, to spice things up for each game, I will be giving you guys one bet that I really like. And let's say if I go 2 for 3, anybody who comments down below, we'll see. We can Venmo them $1 each. So let's go ahead and get into the first game we have on the Thursday slate. We have Green Bay traveling to Detroit. Detroit favored by -7.5 at home. And we saw them at home last week, down big to the Chicago Bears, but really clawing back in that one to beat them, with less than 30 seconds left on the clock. And now they're facing a Green Bay team coming off a win last week against the Chargers in what was a really close game. But now they're just facing Detroit. We already saw this game on Thursday night before, and Detroit really just blew this team off the field. And I'm kind of expecting the same thing once again. Now I see this line at -7.5. It's a short week. Not a lot of time to prepare, not a lot of time for these guys to rest up. But I really like that line in this one. I think Detroit is able to cover this one easily against a Green Bay team, which, playoff hope's really out of the picture. At this point, there's a couple things that could bounce their way and they could find their way into the playoffs, but I really don't see that happening. And Detroit, like I've already mentioned, along there with the Eagles and the 49ers in the NFC division, I really like them, to make a deep playoff push this year. And so I'm going to take Detroit in this game 28-13 as they dominate in the first game of the Thursday or Thanksgiving Day game. And for my favorite bet from this game, I really like Goff's line at over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think he's able to air it out against this Green Bay secondary who lost Rasul Douglas at the trade deadline. And we saw Amon-Ra, he's been really consistent this year for the Lions, and I think he's going to catch a couple of touchdowns. And of course, Sam Laporta, who had a great start to the season, has kind of slowed down a little bit. I expect him to get a lot more work in this one, like we did, like he saw last time these two teams matched up. And so, yeah, Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns, excuse me. I think that's a really good bet to place. So let's move on to another game on Thanksgiving. We have the Commanders going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. This one, the biggest spread so far, -12.5. And, I really can't say much about this Commanders team. Sam Howell leads the league in passing yards, and I'll talk about that in a second. But going back to this Cowboys team, their defense has been outstanding this year. Now they're at home on Thanksgiving. I completely expect them to dominate in this one. The Commanders, they've had their ups and downs all season long, and we saw them at the trade deadline really be sellers, trading Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and now they're going into the Lions Den to play the Cowboys. I really don't think this is going to be a pretty game. I think it's going to get pretty ugly over there in Dallas as the Cowboys dominate the Commanders. I think the Cowboys win at 31-17. And for my favorite bet for this game, I really like Sam Howell over 251.5 passing yards. That's currently his line. And like I mentioned to start this to talk about this game, Sam Howell leads the league in passing. He's the only quarterback this year to throw over 3,000 yards so far. And we know they're going to be losing this game from the get-go, and they're going to be getting dominated and they're going to have to throw the ball deep. And eventually I expect this Cowboys defense to really let up off the gas, and we'll see Sam Howell hit his current line of 251.5. Let's go ahead and move on to the last game on Thursday. We have the 49ers going to Seattle to play my Seahawks. Now the line -7.5. And this Seahawks team, which was leading the division just a couple weeks ago, is slowly starting to loosen its chances on that as the 49ers regain control. And, they really got back on track the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the Seahawks, lost to the Rams last week and what should have been a win. And now they're at home against the 49ers, who this is going to be their first time playing them in 3 weeks. So they'll see them again in 2 weeks. But if there's any way the Seahawks team is going to split against the 49ers this year, I think it's going to be in this game at home where we can kind of catch them off guard. We've seen this before, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago when the 49ers were on that, just dominant run. I think, they came into, or we went into San Francisco and we beat them in the first game in our first matchup of the year where we really caught them off guard. And I think when we're at home in this spot, like Lewis and I talked about earlier this week, the Seahawks schedule really, really starts to toughen up the next 4 weeks. And so if we want to rattle off some wins, it's going to be against divisional opponents who we're always going to get up for at home. But I still think this is a close game. The 49ers pull out the 7.5. I think I like the Seahawks to cover that. These two teams are always going to play it tight over there in Seattle, but I still think the 49ers pull off the edge. I think 49ers win 24-21 in a heartbreaking loss for my Seahawks. As for my best bet for this one, I really like Zach Charbonnet anytime touchdown. Now that's at plus value right now. We saw Kenneth Walker. He's going to be missing a couple weeks for the Seahawks team. Not placed on IR, but definitely not going to be in for this one. So I think Zach Charbonnet is going to get a lot of work. If you see the Seahawks team at the goal line, you're going to see rookie UCLA running back Zach Charbonnet to really hammer the ball in. And of course, he's really great in the receiving game as well. So don't think he can't break one for a big touchdown. But that's going to wrap it up for the Thursday slate. And let's move on to Friday football, or Black Friday football. We have the Dolphins at the Jets. Dolphins favored by 9.5 in this one. And I think, everyone can agree this is probably going to be a Dolphins win in this one. They're facing a team with a losing record, and so we know what that means. But I think this is going to be a great test for the Dolphins, at least offensively. Now, this Jets team, the big thing was Zach Wilson has now been benched, not even the backup. He's now the third one in line. And so we'll see Tim Boyle go march out there for the Jets. Now, if this guy had any sort of talent, he would have been starting over Zach Wilson in the first place. And so I think he's just going to be in a rough spot. We've seen Jalen Ramsey come back for the Dolphins. In his 3 games, he's had 3 interceptions. And I think, he could most definitely get another one in this game. But for the Dolphins, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be on them, for their offense. They're going to see defenses similar to this Jets one, right? In this AFC playoff division, the Ravens really good. The Chiefs outstanding defensively. And even though the Bills have fallen off a little bit, we know that what their defense can do. And so I want to see this Dolphins team come out with a lot of moxie, a lot of fire. I want to see them be able to move the ball effectively against a Jets team, which is not going to put up many points on offense, but we know their defense is going to come to play in this one, especially in a divisional game. But I think the Dolphins figure this one out. I think Tim Boyle has a really bad game at a quarterback for the Jets. And so my best bet for this game will be Dolphins to cover at minus 9.5. Even though it's going to be a short week, I just don't think the Jets can put up any points offensively. And for my score prediction, I will say 28-10 as the Dolphins blow out the Jets. So that is going to go ahead and wrap up this Thanksgiving and Black Friday slate. I know Lewis told me to tell you guys he also picked the same teams as I did, or we both picked the same teams together. Just maybe not the most competitive games for Thursday, but that just means more time for everyone to focus on their families and enjoy their Thanksgiving dinner. But like I said, if we can go two for 4 on these picks, we'll see if we can Venmo some people in the comments. But with that being said, I think this is the First and Goal podcast signing off. Peace.